The moment Jinwoo gave the command, Baru and the thousands of shadow soldiers rushed toward the enormous guardian standing before the gate. Jinwoo already knew that this enemy would be powerful, but the sheer size and presence of the giant exceeded even his expectations. Mana filled the creature's body so densely that it seemed to form a natural armor around him. Instead of retreating, Jinwoo remained calm. He still had a large amount of mana available, and he understood that defeating an opponent of this level would require patience and strategy. The battlefield quickly became something far beyond an ordinary hunter raid. It was no longer humans fighting monsters. It had become a clash between supernatural beings of overwhelming strength. Jinwoo ordered his entire shadow army to attack. Thousands of soldiers surrounded the giant from every direction, but the guardian did not even bother to move. He simply stood there as the shadows approached. Then, with one devastating swing, he destroyed more than 100 soldiers at once. Jinwoo immediately recognized the danger. The giant's physical strength was extraordinary, but that was not the only problem. A terrifying aura surrounded him, making even Baru cautious. The ants attacked repeatedly, trying to penetrate the giant's defenses, yet their attacks barely affected him. His body was covered with such an immense amount of mana that it functioned almost like invisible armor. Jinwoo realized that the giant was not defending himself because he had absolute confidence in his own durability. Still, Jinwoo refused to give up. He continued sending his soldiers forward, studying every movement and searching for even the smallest weakness. He remembered that the giant had previously blocked an attack, which suggested that there might be a limit to his defense. Jinwoo summoned Kaisel and prepared another attack. The battle intensified as both sides unleashed increasingly powerful abilities. Eventually, Jinwoo saw the opening he had been waiting for. Baru received his master's command and launched a devastating assault. With his extraordinary speed and deadly skill, Baru tore into the giant's defenses. Jinwoo then activated his commander's authority, controlling the battlefield with precision. The fight had reached a point where ordinary measures were meaningless. Only monsters could survive a confrontation between such monstrous powers. Jinwoo and Baru continued their relentless assault until the giant finally began to weaken. The creature had destroyed countless shadow soldiers, but Jinwoo had never intended to defeat him through brute force alone. Every attack had been part of his investigation. He was observing how the giant moved, how his mana reacted, and where his defenses became vulnerable. When the opportunity finally appeared, Baru struck with devastating precision. Jinwoo gave the order, and Baru unleashed his mutilation ability. The attack was powerful enough to bring down the enormous guardian. For a moment, everything became silent. The system confirmed that Jinwoo had defeated an enemy and rewarded him with another level. However, Jinwoo immediately noticed something strange. The system did not announce that he had defeated the dungeon boss. Even more disturbing was the fact that shadow extraction could not be used on the fallen giant. There was no familiar black smoke surrounding the corpse. Jinwoo understood that this creature was fundamentally different from the ordinary monsters he had encountered before. Even after death, an enormous quantity of mana remained inside the giant's body. That mana began flowing toward the gate, creating a violent storm that filled the surrounding area. The energy became so intense that even Jinwoo was injured by its pressure. Jinwoo ordered Jinho to remain outside while he entered the gate to investigate. Baru followed him, and together they discovered an enormous space filled with an incredibly dense concentration of mana. The environment was unlike any normal dungeon. Jinwoo realized that the gigantic guardian had been able to enter this place because of its immense scale. As they moved deeper inside, they suddenly heard a strange laugh echoing through the darkness. Instead of sounding afraid, the mysterious voice seemed amused by their arrival. Jinwoo immediately became alert. Someone, or something, had been waiting for them. The voice mocked the rulers and welcomed Jinwoo as a monarch. Soon, Jinwoo discovered a gigantic being imprisoned in chains. The prisoner claimed to know the truth behind the rulers and the coming war. He explained that he had been trapped there for an extremely long time and had been waiting for an opportunity to escape. According to him, the mysterious rulers were preparing the world for another enormous conflict against the monarchs. Jinwoo realized that the battle outside had only been the beginning. The true mystery was hidden inside the gate, and the chained giant might possess answers that could completely change his understanding of the war. The imprisoned giant introduced himself as Legia, the king of the giants and one of the monarchs. Jinwoo was immediately suspicious. Why would a powerful monarch be chained inside a gate? Legia explained that the rulers had captured him and were attempting to use him as part of a much larger plan. He warned Jinwoo that the rulers were preparing the stage for a new war between themselves and the monarchs. Jinwoo asked whether these rulers were the same beings responsible for sending monsters through gates and causing disasters throughout the human world. Legia confirmed that they were. He explained that the monsters appearing from gates were not necessarily true representatives of the monarchs. Many were defeated soldiers and prisoners who had been trapped under the control of the rulers for countless years. Legia also explained why he was different from those creatures. Because he was a king, he had retained his intelligence and sense of identity despite his imprisonment. He had spent ages waiting for an opportunity to escape, but every attempt had failed. Then Jinwoo arrived. Legia believed Jinwoo could become a crucial ally in the coming conflict. However, Jinwoo was not willing to trust a strange giant simply because he claimed to be a monarch. Legia understood his hesitation and activated a special ability called the Pledge of Trust Exchange. This supernatural contract prevented both participants from deliberately lying to one another. Jinwoo accepted the agreement, and Legia promised that if Jinwoo freed him, he would cooperate with him. The conversation revealed even more shocking information. Jinwoo asked why Legia could communicate clearly when most creatures emerging from gates behaved like mindless monsters. Legia explained that these beings were known as the denizens of chaos. Many of them were former soldiers who had been defeated and imprisoned by the rulers. After spending an eternity in captivity, their minds had deteriorated, leaving them little more than broken warriors. Legia, however, had remained mentally intact because of his status and strength. Jinwoo then asked about the mysterious soldiers wearing silver armor and possessing wings. Legia confirmed that they were servants of the rulers. Finally, Jinwoo demanded to know why these rulers continued sending monsters toward Earth. Legia gave him the answer he had been searching for. They were preparing the planet to become a battlefield. Their objective was not simply to send monsters through gates or test human hunters. They were preparing for a much larger war against the monarchs. Jinwoo now understood that every dungeon, every monster, and every strange event might be connected to a conflict far greater than humanity could imagine. With Legia potentially becoming an ally, Jinwoo's journey was entering a completely new stage, one where the true enemies were no longer hidden behind gates, but powerful beings preparing for an ancient war that could determine the fate of the entire world.